Welcome to Reflections. I'm your host, Patrick Tomlinson, and today we have with us Dr. Kildare Clarke, who has consented to sitting for the second part of the interview of her fascinating life and profession. So, Dr. Clarke, welcome.
Thank you.
The last time we spoke, you explained or went into a little bit of how you got into medical school and how you became an MD. Um, I would like us to go a little bit more into that, but for the benefit of my listeners, I also want to let them know that not only are you a trained a trained physician, but you're also a lawyer by training, which you started telling us a little bit about the last time in our interview. So and then also you are a professional negotiator. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's
Um,
correct.
and you have qualifications from the Um, Cornell University School of Industrial Relations and
And that's correct.
Collective Bargaining. So you have many, many hats to wear, Dr. Clark. I wonder where you find time in the day. But anyhow, that is just indicative of a bright and accomplished individual that you are. So the last time you started telling us about going to night school at, is it Pace University?
Yes, Pace University. That's first. I was one
Okay.
of I think the second class. They had just opened their law
Mhm.
school, and I was part of that second group of students.
Okay, at Pace University Law School.
That's correct.
Right. So how long did it take you? So you're working as a physician during the day and going to law school during the night?
That's correct. What I did
Was that?
is,
Oh, okay.
it's a very unique way. I went to the dean of the law school during one summer, and I told him that I'm interested in law as in general, but as it relates to the medical field. And I wanted
Hmm.
to audit two courses, one in criminal procedure and one in constitutional law. And he said, fine.
Hmm.
So I went and I did it. I got B's in the course. And I said, let me just continue with a law school. And they agreed,
Hmm.
and I continue. So if I had gone as a full time student during the day, it would be a 3 year course. But as a part
Hmm.
time student, it's a 4 year course. But I decided that I must graduate with the 3 year class, which I entered with. So,
Hmm.
what I did while everybody was going away having a good time during the summers, I was taking my other law courses to make up for those which I couldn't take during the part time session because you're allowed only a certain amount of course during the evening session. So that's how I made up and then graduated with the 3 year class which I entered with.
Okay. Well,
So
that's in it. In go ahead.
so after I finished that, my mother and father were still alive, and I swore on a Bible that I want to show them that I am going to be the most educated, one of the most educated person in the world. So I went to Cornell to do my Master's of Science in Industrial Labor Relation because at the same time I was now vice
Hmm.
president for the union for the doctors who work for New York City. So all 3,000 doctors which work for the New York City, I was the vice president of the union which represent them in contract negotiation. So their
What
salary,
union was that called?
the Doctors Council.
Okay.
So that,
Okay.
so all the doctors which work within the city system, whether it's correction or Department of Health or Health and Hospital Corporation, which is the major hospital system, which consists of 11 acute care hospital and six tertiary care facility or clinics. So I took that over, and then I said, now that I finished with my master's degree, I'm just going to go on to City University Graduate Center and finish my PhD in international affairs.
What area? Oh, international affairs.
Right. Again, I'm still thinking about my cousins, which again, I didn't grow up with them, but they were in politics. And it's always fascinated me of people's movement and control. You know, in other words, if you
Patrick, let me
make
ask you a quick
movement,
question.
yes,
Were you also, or are you also related to the Manley family?
yes, yes.
Because it's
Manley and Buster,
okay.
they are all cousins. We are all cousins.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So that's why
Fascinating.
I was
All
so
right. So
interested.
you're. Mhm.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were
Go
asking a
ahead.
question. Go
Yes.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, so
No, I was saying. So you. Yes.
now I'm waiting on you to ask the question. Go on.
No. Go ahead. Go ahead. Continue what you're saying. You said you're all related, and you made a comment that you wanted to be competitive and to get to where your abilities would lead you.
Right, because I want to show my mother and father, especially my mother, that she didn't waste one moment raising me. She did the best job she could do. And I want her to be so happy that this is the product which she has molded. So I started my
Okay.
PhD in international affairs. And in the midst of that, one evening I was in my office in White Plains, and I'd gone home. Some other family member had come from Canada and from Germany, and they were visiting. So I went up and I was saying hello to my mother and father, and giving them, every week I give them their own pocket money to use, separate from the house money. And I went back to the office, and then
So were they here with you in New York?
yes, I brought them here. I said,
Your peers.
wherever I go, you're going to live with
Oh,
me. After a while, not immediately, but I
okay.
brought them here. And they were here with
Okay.
me,
So they were
right, living with me.
okay.
And then my brother came
Mm-hmm.
down to the office with tears in his eyes. And I said, what's the matter? And he said, Mommy just went to the bathroom and collapsed. And I went upstairs
Mm-hmm.
and I saw her in the bathroom. So we lifted her, put her back in the bed, and we attached the EKG machine to her, and she was in something known as atrial, atrioventricular disassociation, meaning the atrium is beating differently from the ventricle, so she couldn't get perfusion to her brain. So I called the EMS so that we could take her there to the hospital, but I know she was gone. So we intubated her, took her to the hospital, and I remember one word she said to me: I do not want to be an invalid. And I said to
Mm-hmm.
my brothers, my father, and my sister who were there, I said, I am going to honor her word. Because if she gets through this, she's going to have massive, you know, problem later. She won't be able to walk and things like that. Because she was in electromechanical dissociation for some time before the ambulance. So I had to let her go. And it was the worst time of my life
I can imagine. I can imagine.
until today.
Mm-hmm.
And when I hear people talk about you can't keep on mourning about someone who is gone, I can never get her out of my mind. I knew I did the best for her, but I wanted her to be
Mm-hmm.
here a little longer to enjoy more of what she had planted. So then we took her body, as per her request, back to Jamaica and buried her. And my father came back, and I said to my brothers and sister, Daddy's not going to live for more than 2 more years. Because in my experience, when there is a marriage and the woman died before the man, generally within 2 years after the man is gone, the opposite happens for the female. If the man dies before,
mhm,
the woman lives on for a long while to come. Maybe we are just cruel to women, but maybe
mhm,
that's what happened. But that's how the system goes. And then my father
mhm,
died, so I took him home to because he had fell down and had an aneurysm, and I said it doesn't make sense to keep him alive because we just pleasing ourselves, and he's going to be a vegetable. So
mhm,
I let him go too.
mhm,
But
mhm,
during that whole course of time, I was bringing every one of my brothers and sisters who wanted to come to the United States. So far, I have brought quite a bit of them here. Some of them became lawyers.
mhm,
Some of my
mhm,
nieces became doctors. My kids, two of my older kids, became doctors. And,
mhm,
again, as I said, a lot of nephews and nieces who either become lawyers, doctors, or something to do with education. But it was my principle
mhm,
that education is the
mhm,
fundamental of life. If you don't get it, I am feeling sorry for you. And I will try my best to help you to get it because it makes you a different person, a better human being. It's not only the money which you can make, but you learn to be helpful to others, especially you know where you're coming from and what it takes to get you there. And during my time at King's County Hospital, I always, when I'm interviewing a patient, I always ask them about their family, what the family consists of, who the family consists of, what their educational status, and those who couldn't go on to school because of money. I always try to help them out so that they can get to school. And today I can be very proud that I have lots of students who have helped, who has become doctors, teachers, and lawyers. And that all stemmed from my mother and father, watching them help those who didn't have
mhm,
anything, even though we didn't have much. And also the help I
mhm,
got on my journey from others to become what I am today. And before my mother died, I wrote her a letter, which my sister and nieces read to her. And it says, Mother, all the floggings which I've gotten for you, I used to hate it. Sometimes I grumble loud in my mind, what a wicked woman you are to be flogging me because she would wake you up at nights after is okay. And she goes on the litany of things you did wrong and she flog you for each one of them. But I told her, I want to thank you for all those floggings because you made me the man I am today. And I am forever grateful to you. And there's nothing in my life which is too good for you. And no one in my life, neither my kids or my wife or anybody, comes before you. You are my wife, my mother,
mhm.
and my God. And I still believe that until today.
You also, I published a number of papers, and uh, I'm not sure if this is a book titled, well, you did research and published a paper on the legalization of drugs and the crisis of drug prohibition. You seem to have some interest and certainly some expertise in this whole business of drugs and drug legalization. Um, do you want to speak a little bit about that within the current climate that we have now with the legalization of marijuana and other drugs being considered? You want to speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I wrote the paper some years ago with and give a talk along with Milton Friedman, the Nobel Prize economist at Stanford University. And it has always been my position that we are doing horrible things to people just because they smoke or drink or use marijuana, whatever form they want. You want it.
Or just
I
other
talk about
drugs? Yeah,
drugs overall, but I specifically go to
specifically
marijuana first.
marijuana. Okay,
And the reason for
okay.
marijuana is that it's a plant. Let's not kid ourselves. It's a plant. Why
Mm-hmm.
we to
Mm-hmm.
say that you cannot use it? Who give us any right to tell a person what they can use or cannot use? If there's anything we can say to the person, you have your choice. You can use it. There are certain
Mm-hmm.
consequences if you use it and certain things happen. Like you use it and you drive and kill someone. Then the onus is on that person. We have no right to dictate a person's life in that. In other words, it's no different from slavery. And some people might laugh at me and said, "You're crazy. Slavery was worse." Yes, slavery was worse because people were captured. But when you're taking someone who smoked marijuana and put them in jail, working at for pennies per day, is it any different from being a slave? You are a slave. And I am terribly against it. I fought for it in the state legislature. One of the time I lost my medical license for it because I gave it to a patient to utilize because the patient had taken every antipsychotic medication you can think about, every illicit drug, and couldn't get well. And I got him as a patient and I put him back on medical marijuana so that I can get him off all the other drugs and also cocaine. And today, up to about 3 weeks ago, I got a letter from that patient. They're happily married, their kids to living a useful life, no longer on the government dole. And they asked me at the health department if I would do that. I said yes. I was doing things for the benefit of the patient, not for me, not for money. Treating that patient free of cost. They said, "Would you treat that patient again?" I said, "Yes, I would." And I guess that was a little bit too much for them. And they took my license. I said, "Fine." I said, "The worst thing the United States have ever done is to allow me to get an education, because now I am the most dangerous person in the world because I'm going to use my education for the benefit of society and not to please any particular group. Whatever is best for the mass is best for everyone, not what is best for just a few."
Mm.
Then
Okay.
it gets to the
So,
you know,
go ahead.
then it
Go
gets to
ahead.
the other point about cocaine and all those things. The people who knows the science and understand all of these things realize that if we leave the cocoa leaf there, the Indians in South America use it for religious reason and for other medicinal purpose. Is because we use our chemical mind to extract from things from them. To the Indians in South America use it for religious reason and for other medicinal purpose. Is because we use our chemical mind to extract from things from them to purify it, and now we tell them they can't use it. But yet, most of our leaders and people who dictate to us in government, they are the money people behind most of the drug dealers. There's a discussion I had with William Buckley on Fire in Line, known as drug policy, United States drug policy failed. And one of my
Mm-hmm.
position was simple this: we are criminalizing people for things which the rich and the not so rich but rich enough are utilizing. Look, alcohol. Alcohol is one of the most destructive thing you can ever think about. Yet, how much a bottle you have to pay for Hennessy green or Hennessy white? You know, but it's the poor people which we are like a piranha, grabbing them up, utilizing them for our own purpose. And I'm totally against that. I want people to understand that people's decision might be wrong, but it's more of an illness more than anything else. So let's treat the illness. Let's get them educated. For instance, if I'm treating a psychiatric patient, my main mode of treatment is education, because the more that person know about themselves, the better off they are to make good independent decisions. Yet if I put them on antipsychotic medication, they're going to have all type of side effect, put on weight, walks around like they're in space and everything, and we think we are doing them good. At the debate with Charlie Wranglin, which I am so angry with him until today, because he was overseeing the drug in South America while Harlem was burning down with crack babies and all those, and he didn't care. One of the doctors who was on that program with me, if anyone wants to go and look at that program, I tell him, you know what? He said, would you give drugs to the patients? And I said, yes, I will give it to them. And he says, these people are drug dealers. And I said, you know what, doctor? You and myself are the biggest drug dealers in the world, only that we have a license to do it. And he was very angry with me. But it's true. It's true. You look at the Medicaid thing. Most of the doctors go to prison. What are they going to prison for? They're going to prison for ripping off Medicaid and their money. So
You were
medicine.
you were an auditor for Medicaid. I think I read it somewhere in your.
It was an auditor. I sat with the Medicaid group in New York, because
Mhm.
what was happening when we make prescription for patient, the pharmacist was giving them generic drug and charging the Medicaid program for brand name drug. So we set up an office all over the state with my name, and I wrote the prescription, give it to the undercover agent. They would go to the pharmacy. The pharmacist would claim they had called me to get permission to give generic name while they're charging for brand
A brand
name.
name. Hmm.
I said, it's impossible. You couldn't have called me, because all those telephone numbers ring in the state attorney general's office. So
Hmm.
you couldn't have spoken to me,
Hmm.
because I am so incensed of the few dollars which all of us contributed for the benefits of society is ripped off by a few people, including doctors.
Hmm.
And one thing I want the public to always remember: medicine, at best, is an inexact science.
Hmm.
It's science, luck, and the prayer and the wings of God.
Okay.
So what is good for this person doesn't necessarily mean it's good for the next person.
Hmm.
But if you do not understand cultural difference, socioeconomic differences, it's very difficult for you to do very good for your patient.
Okay.
It's useless to tell someone, follow this diabetic diet, when all that person can afford is a slice of bread every day.
Hmm.
But we don't get concerned about that, because that's too small a stake. We like to talk in platitudes and talk big, but everything comes back to ground. If you don't understand what's happening on the ground, you're not going to happen what's happening in the skies.
Okay. Very passionate views and very a lot of deep insight and experiences with the medical profession here in um, New York and I would say the United States. In the remaining 1 or 2 minutes, I would like to ask you to summarize for us and to leave us with some words of wisdom um, as we conclude this interview.
One of the things I would like to see every one of us does, especially when we support an institution, like if you take the Health and Hospital Corporation, I've begged them for years. A lot of your hospital is next door to schools. And as you notice, the Health and Hospital Corporation hospital are generally in a poor neighborhood
Mhm.
because we have good specimens, as we used to say, from the poor neighborhood because people come from all over and you learn things which you might never see again. I beg them, let us adopt the school which is nearest to us so that we as doctors can go there, be influenced to those children so that they can become, all of them are not going to become doctors, but some might become nurses, some might become respiratory technician, but give them that ability, give them that right, expose them.
The
And we
opportunity.
we have not done that.
Mhm.
I take it upon myself right now to provide free health care for people because whether even if they have Medicare and Medicaid, I said, don't bother. I'm not going to charge you because you know what? I can survive. I
Mhm.
want to see you go home, be happy with your children. Tell them that you met somebody who came from maybe even a poorer background than you are coming from. And they make it, and they're telling me you can make it.
Okay, Dr. Clark, we just have a few seconds left. Um, I'm sure we're going to have to probably invite you back another time to go into health policies and areas such as that. I want to thank you so much, Kildare Clarke, MD, JD, MSc, LLR, and F.C.L.M. On behalf of BronxNet and the supporting staff, I want to thank them for making this a possibility. And to thank you so much, Dr. Clark, for a very inspiring life and a very insightful interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and I look forward to coming back because there's a lot more which I want to express to not only Jamaicans, but everybody. You can't be too poor to make it. It might be difficult, but you can make it.
Absolutely. Wise words concluded. Thank you, Dr. Clark.
Thank you very much.